and tell a story about experience at the Saginaw VA. This would have been last week or the week before. Yeah, it was the week before. We're trying to get questions about questions answered about when you use a contractor, and when the contractor does your disability benefits questionnaires, your DBQ, for your examinations, and it's outside of your county. And we went to several offices. Um, Compensation and pension was closed. Uh, Generally, that happens now when we go there. They're closed a lot when we go to the building. But I mean, there's only like one or two people in there, so uh, I guess it's common sometimes. But so we're walking around. We were looking for someone who could answer our questions, regarding if you don't have a vehicle, how do you go forward? Because everybody says, "Oh, you'll get reimbursed." Yeah, I know that. But if you don't have a vehicle, what then? So we went to oh gosh, what is her office? We went to one of the offices on the first floor. First floor, not the basement. The first floor, the main floor. And we stood outside. Actually, I think I had a cart that day. So we sat outside her office for had to be close to 10 minutes. And she was on the phone. This is the VA phone, the government phone, talking to City Hall about which particular person in City Hall she should talk to about a tax question. And she didn't know exactly which apartment, or not which apartment, which department uh, the particular office was, in the building that was the people she was supposed to talk to pay something or register something. I'm not really sure. Um, it could have been for business registration or to pay taxes. I don't know. But my thing was, she was sitting at her desk, not using her cell phone. She was using the VA phone. Now, this was about 2 o'clock in the afternoon, so more than likely her her lunch was done, and we stood there. It had to be close to 10 to 15 minutes, and then finally, when we walked in, I asked her if I could ask her a question, and she very abrasively says, "Yeah, perhaps I could answer your question, maybe." Um, and so I went in. Then she went through the whole spiel, name and social security number. I'm like, "Well, I just have a general question, to ask about C&P and travel and all that." And then she is like she spouted from a script. The VA reimburses all travel claims, uh, or they provide travel to a particular place. You can go and talk to transportation. And they said, no, this is for a contractor doing a C&P exam. So contractors, they handle everything internally. We can't answer any questions about that. And the whole time, she never looked me in the eyes once. Not even once. And I even moved because her screen is positioned so she sits in front of it. She can't see the door. So I moved to closer a little bit more into the side so she could see me. She still didn't look me in the eyes. She stared right at her, either at her desk or at her computer screen. Very, very rude. And, gave you an attitude of, that's just the kind of attitude I was giving of I was bothering her. Um, that she had other things to do than to be bothered with a veteran. That was kind of the feeling that I got. And I was certainly disrupting her from her question with City Hall. She probably saw me sitting out there, perhaps. So I guess you can see a little bit past the screen. She can see a little bit in the doorway, perhaps. Or she heard me saying to my daughter that she's on the phone. We'll wait outside. I don't know. But that's not the first time. I've seen other screens there. No, I'm speaking for all staff. But back when I was DOD or being a contractor, you couldn't install things on your desktop, especially third-party apps and stuff. And if you were using email to send stuff back and forth, like jokes, or we used to send like joke videos and stuff, and crazy pictures and stuff, until the oh gosh, what did they call it back then? Um, until the technical services. Gosh, what did we call it back then? Anyway, we had IT within the command, and it was like a collateral duty in addition to base IT, which covered IT for the entire base, which would have been the tech people, and back in the Navy we called them RMs, or now they're called ITs, and they would sometimes they would access your account and they would bust you sending stuff, or IT would do random, um, just do random like gosh, I guess they would be mirroring people's IP, or maybe going into people's email and seeing who's in their email and screwing around. And if you had a lot and you were flagged, oh yeah, this person's always fooling around on their email. Especially if you're military, you can get in some trouble. If you're civilian, you can get written up. Actually, get written up for both, but it's handled differently. Too many write-ups for a civilian, and they have grounds to terminate them. For military, too many write-ups because you're fooling around in email, and you'll get extra duty. Or if it becomes really bad, or you're doing something profane, or having an argument or something, it could go into NJP, non-judicial punishment. But that was back in the day. It's not too it wasn't too much time ago. It was this is what uh, 13 years um, from when I've last worked for the government and military or as a contractor. Um, it's not much time. But there you see people logging into different apps and fooling around, sending emails back and forth. Sometimes joke emails, or emails to complain about veterans. Um, this is how this one way that they call it the disruptive behavioral um, response committee, I think. Yeah. One way they communicate is via email. They complain about veterans they don't like. Um, I've seen some stuff, and some stuff I've seen people send emails to other people so that they can create paperwork on veterans. Um, all kinds of stuff. People send results through email instead of putting it in the veterans file. I mean, all kinds of stuff. And they always tell people, oh yeah, if you're not happy with your your CPRS record and what's in VA.gov, then you can always file an amendment with the what is that department, with privacy, I think, either privacy and records. Actually, I think they're both the same office at Saginaw. But file an amendment form, which is basically, it looks like something that somebody created on in Word Perfect, or not Word Perfect, I mean in Word. Um, it's not even a official government approved document, approved by OPM or OMB, Office of Management Budget, or OPM or VA or VBA or VHA. I mean, it's not a government approved document. Somebody made it in Word. And you type things in there, and then they will submit it to privacy, and they'll put it in your permanent files. This is made up stuff there. But in the end, privacy determines what goes in your records, and they blame the medical providers. I already discussed that in the video, and I went through that the past couple of days. Been dealing with that because if something doesn't go in your record, or they keep it only locally, it's not in CPRS. Then, as far as I understand, I am 99% sure that when VBA pulls your record for your claim, it's not in there. And definitely, if your conditions, your medical conditions that are listed in va.gov, if you don't have all of your diagnoses in there, the intake center, which is VBA, the people that handle your claim, they don't see them. So that means for a particular condition, you'll be denied, or they'll defer you. Now, I have a lot of questions why I'm having a condition act up really bad today, but we'll push through. Uh, but I have so many people involved from Wisconsin in my life, I can't understand it for the life of me. But as long as nobody's doing evil, I don't have a problem with it. Um, but it's certainly a pattern. We'll say that. And if people aren't doing evil, I then they wouldn't attract my attention. Um, but generally, even if people are trying to do evil but hide it, or be very subtle or very slow paced, I still see it. Most of the time, the Lord will open my eyes, and I'll see it. And sometimes if I don't, believe it or not, my daughter will say, "Daddy, you know what?" But generally, I see these things. Thanks be to God. But the thing, that really concerns me is, you know, if people at the VA are directly, at least at this VA, are directly, not, by omission, by error, or by negligence, incompetence, or by technical error, they are directly trying to interfere in people's claims and trying to ration medical care. You're talking about a very serious thing, because if you dig deep enough, if people are doing this and they feel that they're not going to get caught, they can keep doing these antisocial and destructive behaviors. Um, and if it's for long enough, maybe there's some deaths there too, and that's very concerning. If we've lost some veterans because of this kind of behavior by predators within our own VA system, is very concerning. The current administration promised to cut the budget to the VA, make it more efficient, streamline certain things, and give more money to veterans. I'm still, I'm still waiting to see that myself. So it's very concerning when you see people getting away with so much stuff, and fooling around on the internet, or doing their personal things during VA time when they're supposed to be helping veterans, and people are being rude or dismissive to veterans so they don't bother them. That's one thing that I've learned. Sometimes, I guess certain departments get a wake up call and they have a staff change. I have seen that. Um, People that are rude to veterans, they make them feel that you know, they're not wanted there. We're bothering them. Sometimes you see those people change. There's somebody else at their desk. Um, so I have to give them credit. I've seen this happen one or two times, or they will hire another person. But my concern is, such um, you know, uh, gaslighting and destructive attitudes towards our nation's veterans. Especially, it follows logic. Anybody with common sense knows if a veteran has severe medical issues, they're probably not being a good earner to take care of their family. And gaslighters and predators would say, "Oh, let's take away their kids, um, or let's give them some kind of welfare to shut them up and tell them that they need to take care of their families better." These type of gaslighting and predatory behaviors, they don't really help anything. And the longer that these veterans, their family suffers, doesn't matter, if they have a spouse that, they're okay, the spouse is working. This family is not reaching their potential, and they keep beating down veterans again and again and again, making their medical care worse and worse. Their health is declining, and so ultimately their spouse has to make a decision. Oh, maybe I should put somebody in care. Now on TV and in commercials, they'll try to glorify it, or even on YouTube. Oh, I'm going to see my husband or my wife today. Yeah, they're in a facility. The people will try to glorify it, but there's nothing beautiful about this when the VA is directly responsible and certain staff. And all it's going to take is somebody out there on the web who wants to look into this. How many veteran deaths have happened this year at this particular facility? And, you can use the newspaper generally to find out why. And so it just creates a lot of questions, if we knew these facts. Am I right? And, things are moving into, we're losing veterans because of this kind of attitude and gaslighting, and veterans that are kept financially destitute because their medical care is not being properly addressed, or the providers may be negligent, incompetent, or they just don't care, or they have bad intentions. If this is happening, this is a real national emergency. It goes on the same level as the 22. This is that's a real problem, and hopefully, somebody seeing this video will take things into their own hand and start investigating beyond what I can do. Um, Especially my conditions are worsening, and still we don't know, why I have a bunch of cysts inside of me and swollen lymph nodes. I could be walking around with, I don't know. I'm not going to put it out there, but we just don't know. And if it is autoimmune, it keeps going more and more and more. My systems are going to be so damaged that DMARDs won't help me. But my concern is other veterans. This kind of stuff is happening to them, and families that could have been productive, getting the extra medical care they need because stuff is done properly diagnosed, consults are followed through, and then their family has some kind of income, because generally veterans, we have the attitude, if we can't get what we want within the VA medically, I've known veterans that have secondary insurance. They go out and buy it, a couple hundred a month. If you're being compensated, that's another thing. When veterans are being properly compensated, even while they're recuperating or, being diagnosed, they give back to the economy. We help to the economy. You're talking about several 100 million strong veterans. And I believe last time I read statistics, um, I think it was around uh, 20 to 40% of us are rated, somewhere around there. So it was less than half of us are rated. And it was about, I think, a quarter of us are on some kind of pension. It was somewhere around there. 10% up to a quarter somewhere. My, um, my memory is not what it once was for facts. Not all the time. It may come later. Probably about an hour later, I'll remember those statistics. But that's just a big consideration. You're talking about a lot of financial power that could be helping the economy, um, paying for their own medical tests. Believe me, if I had money, I would. I would choose different labs that have less, legal problems, labs that have less litigation histories, labs that have less negative reviews, um, labs that have, their science is more based on objective truth than R&D budgets and what's profitable. Believe me, I would go to, and labs that are a lot more customer service friendly, like a walk-in lab, and they have packages. These are labs that have thought things through. They've streamlined. They have a system, and they're not suing the FDA. So, and then I'm told another thing. If we had more income, we would move away. And God only knows why people don't want us to just go away. Believe me, we would immediately. But then we would cancel.
Today is Wednesday, July 23rd.
Alexa, stop. Uh, we would go away. We wouldn't need our state benefits or a voucher. Um, we would give things, back as soon as possible, and we would leave. I don't know where we'd go, but we certainly wouldn't be here. But that being said, how many other veterans are in a similar situation? Um, I know at least a handful right in Saginaw County, and some of them they seem to be getting really frustrated. Last time I saw one of them and talked about what's happening to their family. They started to get upset. We're not the only people being kept captive. So it all falls to the VA, some of it. And why is this going on? It's a big question. I hope somebody watching out there has resources more than me and maybe less medical issues. That somebody can send a bunch of FOIA, dropping a ton of FOIA packages on the VA, at least in Saginaw County. A bunch of FOIA letters properly served and start to dig better than I can dig. Do it to protect your grandpa, your grandma, your mom, your dad, your aunt, your uncle, your brother, your sister, because every veteran matters.